Here's an interesting story for economic context. It's really important when we talk about how much things cost in government, in politics, in society. It's important to consider what other things cost in government as well. So for example, like when we hear a proposal for Medicare for all, and we hear a dollar figure for what it would cost, those dollar figures are so huge that they can be meaningless to us. And it's sort of like thinking about a time duration of 1,000,000 years. How do we as humans conceive of the time duration 1,000,000 years? It's really difficult when you consider the lifespan of the average human. So when we compare Medicare, when we look at Medicare for all, we should also consider, well, what do we already spend on healthcare? What do we spend on the military? We need context in order to really understand the economic price tag that exists for programs. So when we talk about the cost of Obamacare or the cost of Trump's tariffs, it's useful to have analogies and other data. And there happens to be research from National Taxpayers Union Foundation, which points out that this latest round of Donald Trump's tariffs have made it so that the total increase in cost to Americans for Trump's tariffs are greater than the average per person taxes for Obamacare. Okay, the cost of the enacted tariffs before the additional tariffs that will start on January 1st of 2019 will be about $42 billion. The cost of the Affordable Care Act is going to be $34 billion next year. The tariffs will cost Americans more than Obamacare, which we were told is too expensive and we can't afford. This is what many people, including Trump, don't understand about tariffs. Trump talks about putting tariffs on other countries. The tariffs are paid for by the businesses importing for those countries. So when you say we are going to put a tariff on China for goods that they export to the United States, it's the businesses buying those goods here that actually pay for that. That means layoffs. That means moving manufacturing out of the US. That means finding ways to circumvent the law to avoid the tariffs. And since we're talking about tariffs, this is also a good time to talk about the trade deficit. Yesterday and earlier today, we talked about the budget deficit. Donald Trump successfully framed himself to his supporters as an expert on trade who knew how to fix it. And in doing so, Trump talked about how the trade deficit was too high. And trade deficit means when you import more than you export, you have a trade deficit. When you export more than you import, you have a trade surplus. Donald Trump has been messing with these tariffs for several months now. And lo and behold, the trade deficit has increased during this time to a 6-month high. Soybean shipments keep declining. Imports keep climbing, meaning not only are Trump's tariffs not working to reduce the trade deficit, but American companies are spending more money on foreign goods rather than redirecting that money domestically. If you are an economic nationalist, and most people are, like, economic nationalism is mostly unquestioned among the left and right, although there are people in our audience who I know disagree. Economic nationalism means that you believe the economic policy of the US, for example, should be geared towards helping the US and Americans and American companies. That's what Donald Trump claims to be doing, economic nationalism. The policy is failing by the standard of economic nationalism. And we know Trump comes from the business world. He's running America like a business. The problem is that many of Trump's businesses went bankrupt and the employees lost their jobs. If you're a supporter of the tariffs, and I know that there are people in the audience who are, please get in touch and tell me, when will the tariffs start having a positive impact? Because so far, the tariffs are costing Americans money. And the trade deficit, which was, according to Donald Trump himself, one of the main statistics, pieces of data that justified this trade war, has been going in the opposite direction compared to what Donald Trump claimed would happen. So I want to hear from you. If you support the tariffs, when will they measurably start doing something good for Americans and for American businesses? Get in touch with me, including via our voicemail number, 219-2DavidP. Today's episode is sponsored in part by the music streaming app Tidal, which is there to foster the relationship between artists, fans, and importantly, values diversity in music and also supports criminal justice reform. Tidal's 4th annual benefit concert, called Tidal X Brooklyn, is all about supporting criminal justice reform, reforming and changing the circumstances that have led to more than 2/3 of prisoners serving life without parole for nonviolent offenses being African American, and all net proceeds from Title X Brooklyn will help to support charities like Reform, like the Innocence Project, like Cut 50 and the Equal Justice Initiative that are working specifically on issues of criminal justice. The concert is going to have some great performances, including Lil Wayne, Meek Mill, Anderson .Paak, and Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill. Okay. There will be a free live stream of the entire show on October 23rd. Find out more, donate to the cause, and tune in at tidal.com/Brooklyn. That's TIDAL.com/Brooklyn.